This is Coda Radio, episode 24, for November 19th, 2012. Hi everyone, you're listening to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our host, Michael Dominic. Hey there, Michael.
Hey Chris, how you doing? I have to unmute myself.
You do sound a lot better. Your fidelity's a little higher when it's unmuted. How you doing this morning?
I'm pretty good. I've been, let's say, modernizing some very old Objective-C.
Yeah, you were like debugging like up till I hit the intro music.
Yeah. Line by line using NSLog, baby, the only way to fly.
I like that. So what are we talking about today?
I refuse to promise anything.
Okay. We're going to keep it. We're just going to go with the flow.
I'm going to go with the flow. We may mention C++, but it may get pushed again.
What can you do? What can you do?
Well, unfortunately, because of the holiday week, I have to shove 5 days worth of meetings into 3.
Oh man, do I know about that? I usually don't have any clients on Mondays, just to make room for the show. But no, sir, after we're done, I'm running out, and I got to go visit some clients just for that same reason.
Well, I'm traveling on Wednesday too, so it's actually 2 days, not 3.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah, it's going to be a busy week, but we're here now. So should we start with the feedback?
Start with the feedback. So Justin is a 2-year IT desktop support major. I would presume is a community college, and would like to know if he can break into software. Now, he wrote a very long email, and as usual, I've managed to make it one sentence.
So I would assume, he's been doing the IT thing, and he's just not feeling it?
Yeah, he's about to finich his, associate's degree.
Okay. And he's
the reason I keep saying I guess is I don't know if he's in the U.S., and I don't know if all you European folk call it something else.
Right.
Righto.
Well, he's figured it out at the right time, because I didn't figure out that I didn't like IT and desktop support until years too late.
So, Justin, he says he listens to every show. He should know I do not have a computer science degree. In fact, I have a liberal arts degree in medieval lit. So, yeah, I think you should get involved with some open source and start coding.
Yeah, especially if he's just feeling the neg, because he's always going to wonder. He's always going to question it if he doesn't do it. You're always going to have that kind of chewing at the back of your mind, like, I wonder if... I know I do. I often wonder if I'd be much happier as a coder. The thing is development is just not my strong suit. I just don't have it in me, I don't think. So you got to practice.
Certainly it's not for everybody, right? It's a very tedious and frustrating thing at times.
Yes. Well, but there's lots of different ways to kind of dip your toes in and see if it's your thing.
I'd say give it a shot. Worst case, you fall back on your, into more of a support role.
Yeah, that's a good like, not just like a backup role, but that's just a good knowledge set to have in either job. So that's actually, he's in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, as someone in the chat saying, there's probably don't like rush to go get a different degree. Like, there's no need to just see what you can do without it.
Yeah, totes. I agree. All right. Should I read Andre's email here?
Read it.
All right. So now Andre wrote into the show, or is it Andrew actually? Because I think he might have typoed his name. I actually think it's Andrew.
His name. It could be Andrew.
Yeah, I think he typoed it when he filled in the name field, but then below he signs it as Andrew.
But Andre is just more elegant.
I do like that. Well, we had an Andre that wrote into last this morning, so I wasn't sure. But Andrew writes, "Hey guys, in your recent comment on Aaron Seigo's post, I know you differentiated between free software, but I don't think you really applied your logic. For example, Michael's impression of hostility to commercial software is pretty close to many people's opinion, but it's not commercial software the neckbeards, I include myself in that group, have an objection to. It's a proprietary software that we have an objection to. We don't want free applications. We want people to make money and charge money for their software. After all, we have to eat. We just want that application to be free software licensed. So things like Steam, NVIDIA, etc., they don't help us because from our perspective, it's better if a proprietary application isn't good, i.e., of the applications in the Android market are no cost, but I still don't use them, nor the market itself. There are applications that are licensed under the GPL which are not zero cost, which I do. So he's saying he goes out and buys GPL Android apps, even if they're not free. The threat to our platform is not commercial development, it's proprietary development. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that's a very honest position to take, and I respect that a lot. To be honest, obviously he disagrees with me on more or less everything, right? So when I say commercial, I more or less mean proprietary in many cases.
Right. You know, I guess that, you know, so this conversation, and it's too bad because it gets so marred down in, well, let's define what everything means. Let's define what commercial. Let's define what proprietary means. Let's define what free means. And there is definitely a place for that conversation, but it's like we're arguing semantics instead of arguing the actual issue. Do you feel that, or do you feel like this is a valid thing that really needs to be straightened out? Because,
well, I feel like in an ideal world, you know, I could open source code journal and trust people to send me $5, even though they could just download the source code from GitHub and compile it and run it, and then make their own binary. Unfortunately, in the real world, I think for every one person who sends me $5, 100 are going to just take it. And they may rationalize it as, it wasn't worth it. Like, we expected a little more, we expected skeuomorphism. We expected it to look like a journal. You know, someone emailed me that. It's weird.
Are you going to do that one?
No. So design is very expensive is the other thing. Mm-hmm. Like, I do think there are areas where I could, not to talk about CodeJournal too much, but I could definitely spruce up a few things, add some animations. But when it comes to assets, those are fairly expensive to hire someone. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely, you're never going to see a version of CodeJournal that looks like a Moleskine wallet or a Moleskine notepad. I'll put it to you that way. But back to the point. I respect his position a lot. In fact, I prefer people who take that position rather than, I feel like there's a lot of amnesty for Google and Canonical, and everybody makes excuses for bad things that they do because they're, quote, open. But if Apple, right, everybody assumes, I shouldn't say everybody, a lot of the JB crowd assumes positive intent on their part. But if Microsoft and Apple do something, even if it's actually a good thing, they assume negative intent. Whereas, as you know, I assume negative intent everywhere and tend to be right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I prefer someone, I guess, who's consistent rather than, though I think it's not realistic, I definitely can respect that position.
Boy, your comments there have made my brain go in two different tracks, and I wonder if we could talk about them both. Number one is, and I just want to maybe bench this one because I don't think it's the stronger argument. Is a commercial application, proprietary or not, that's paid for, or a free software application that's paid for, is that more likely to stick around than a completely free GPL app that there's no revenue model around? Is that more likely to fade away? And then the second thing that I want to talk about is, are what we're really talking about here is there's a group of people who fundamentally believe that software is almost like a form of language. It moves the people forward. It's an evolution of our art. And as a whole, when one person keeps it proprietary, in a very small sense, they're sort of holding back the progression of the technology as a whole. And they're sort of being selfish by doing that. And if they open source their code, everyone benefits, everyone learns, and it all goes back into the greater good, and it moves everybody forward. And so when they're looking at it's an option between bettering the human race or somebody making a buck. And they think that some person that just wants to make a buck is just a jerk. Do you think it's that?
Well, I think it's much simpler than that on your second argument, right? It's the old late 80s, early 90s hacker mantra, information wants to be free. Yeah. But so the problem is, Andrew and people like him, RMS, try and differentiate freedom from free of cost, and in reality, that's almost never the case, where it doesn't work well unless you're selling maintenance or support or some kind of service with your software.
Like Red Hat Enterprise Linux.
Like RHEL. RHEL is the example people who make this argument always bring up, but it's not the model of selling the software. They're selling a service. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, I don't know that, you mentioned anybody who's trying to make a buck is somehow polluting the software. I don't know.
Or maybe stealing from the overall greater good. You're robbing from Peter to pay yourself kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with that. I think a lot of the best things historically have been done out of an individual just trying to either make money or trying to do something on his own because he wanted it that way. I'm not a
Yeah.
big fan of committees. I'm not a big fan of
Oh, yeah.
that kind of thing. And I, this is definitely a rabbit hole where we talked about last week about the cult of personality, and we have an email about that. Committees are often never really committees, right? So I guess I'd rather a more honest proprietary dictatorship than some kind of faux popularity contest. But we're far away from Andrew's point, right? I mean, he's obviously an intelligent person. I'm sure he knows the realities of piracy and how that would affect developers monetarily.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a different position. I think people like that are definitely fighting the tide. Just a quick chat. So, note on the chat room. Somebody's mentioning Brian Lunduke did an experiment. His experiment failed. So Chris would know better than I do, but
yeah, I mean, it failed so badly that he ended up.
He did it for about 2 weeks, a week maybe.
He did it for 2.5 weeks, and he aborted. He was supposed to do it for a month, but he couldn't make it, and then he ended up getting so broke from it that he had to go get a job, which then led him to being overworked, which ended up resulting in him leaving Linux Action Show. I would say it was a spectacular failure.
Yeah, that was a catastrophic failure. So the idea that, and I watched his experiment closely, and
I don't know if you've seen his new model, but I think his new model is going to just breed nothing but animosity. And I've already gotten comments from people. They're like, I can't believe he's doing this, and I don't mean to dog on him because I actually think it's kind of a compelling idea. But the problem, there's some fundamentals that are not where they need to be in order for it to work.
I saw some people getting a bit snippy with him on Google Plus. Yeah. I've been very busy. I didn't look, but it's weird to me. It's odd that anyone would snap at that guy on the grounds of quote freedom.
I know it's people get really wrapped up, and so what he's doing now, I kind of think it's sort of an interesting idea. Is he's charging one rate for the application, proprietary, one rate for the GPL code, and one rate for the BSD code. And if I recall, I think he's actually charging more for the BSD code because it's kind of like take it and do whatever you want kind of a deal. And that, to me, I think, so you can buy the app at sort of the standard entry price, 5, 10, 15, whatever it is, then, or you buy the whole thing for one price at GPL code, or you buy another at BSD. But see, in order to do that, you have to have the type of application that, first of all, people want to build and extend, right? I mean, it needs to be something where there's a reason and there's value in doing that. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is it needs to be in a code, basically it needs not to be written in Real Basic. And then when the people ask for the source code, he hands them over a Real Basic XML project file. And that's where the backlashes come from. Yeah, most of it that I've seen.
I mean, you kind of glossed over what I think is the real point here. The guy lost his business because of these ideals. And not to be a jerk, but you people are still hate banging on him.
That's true, but I think I think if he had the right product, I think it could have worked. I think it was a combination of the wrong type of products for that type of appeal, and then
that's the proprietary model. If you have the right product, people will give you money. So it's the same approach. So why he inherited all this extra risk by going open or free, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the simple facts, I mean, you can talk theory. The simple facts is he did this experiment. It cost him his business. Right? That's what it looks like. And I'm sure he would give you a softer thing because he's an enthusiast. But to then criticize him, if I was Brian, I would never develop anything on Linux again.
I think the criticism is coming from because people see that part of the reason why the execution failed was because it wasn't executed properly. Right? So he launched the open source initiative, and then he left town for 2 weeks. And then he got back, and he killed it after a week that he was back. So he was completely gone, didn't release any code for the first 2 weeks that he went open source. And then when he got back, the code he did release, he slowly released, and he just released Real Basic files. And I just don't think that's going to win. I mean, yes, you're right. The end result is this experiment did cost him his business, and now he's working a 9-to-5 job. But the reality is he probably shouldn't have tried it in the first place with that arrangement. So I think some people are hostile because he's giving it a bad name, but it wasn't the right experiment. It wasn't the right thing to try.
So if it was, let's say, Objective-C classes, right? So, Objective-C.m files.
I think that would have rocked. I think people like that, because then people, I think exactly the thing that would be more successful. Something that another business person is. See, here's what it is. If I'm working on a project and it's for my business, I will spend the money. I would buy the code. I would want all of that stuff, but it's not the right product. It just has to be the right product, because if you get the right people, I mean, that's why Photoshop costs $1,000. If you get the right group of people and you have the right thing for your target demo, it works.
See, I just don't think it's that simple. I think we may see people try that sort of experiment again, and I think it'll be a while because of how publicly it went bad for him. I don't know. I mean, I like to assume positive intent on the part of users, but I also know the reality of if people can get something for free, they will.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. Like, yeah. I've had my stuff pirated. It happened.
Yeah.
The other thing is, and I think what happened in his case is a lot of people cheered him on. And, that's not reflected in the amount of money that was brought in. And the
other thing you have to ask, too, is if sales are already slagging off and sales are down, can you really realistically expect a big surge by going open source, or is it just more maintaining the same when you do that?
Well, I think you expected a surge, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big stunt to pull.
Right. That's exactly right. And maybe that's just not how it works. Maybe when sales are down is not the right time to try something like that.
Maybe,
I don't know.
I mean,
maybe it is.
We're never
I don't know.
Gonna know, 'cause, I certainly won't be the next person to try this.
Right.
And I, in good conscience, I couldn't recommend anyone else to, because the only case we have is the worst case.
I don't want to beat it to death, but I just can't get behind the idea that having a proprietary application like Steam or having a proprietary driver like NVIDIA hurts.
Yeah, so that's the real point here, right? We got off the rails. I agree with you. I don't think that the fact that NVIDIA is trying to help graphics performance is going to harm the ecosystem at all. In fact, I think it helps. And something just crashed outside.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Probably just a gas line.
So, Andrew, thank you for your email. We went way long with it. Let's get back to the next one.
Okay, sorry about that.
So Nicolas asks, would you say that having a strong ego is a requirement for people who want to be successful in, quote, the business?
Huh.
I like the quotes. And he goes on to give a few examples in his emails where he sat in meetings, known something was wrong, didn't say anything, blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah.
I would say that you need to not be afraid to speak up, but you don't necessarily need to be a tool.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple. Definitely, if you know something's wrong, say something.
I'd say confidence and conviction are more important.
It's like if you go to Penn Station, now they have signs all over, see something, say something.
Do they really?
Yes, they do, and they have armed military dudes and cops with MP5s. But
where's this? Where?
Penn Station.
What is it? What is this, 1984? If you see something, say something. What ridiculous propaganda is that?
Well, they don't want anybody, blowing up a train.
If you see something. All right. Well, I would say conviction, because if you're starting out, there's going to be a lot of people, or just especially if you're blazing a new trail. It's just you gotta identify what you think is right, and you gotta be willing to stick with it.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty simple. So let's move on. Pope agrees regarding the cult of personality and more. At the and more part, I was supposed to fill in the following. Whoops. So basically, he says that there is a cult of personality, but I'm wrong that it's only the bigwigs complaining. It's that I only see them complaining.
Oh.
That he has been screaming about this forever.
Well, okay. That makes sense.
Sorry. Nathan shares a article that I typoed the title, called The Linux GUI Development Nightmare.
Oh.
Now, I talked about this a bit, and there's a link to his article in the show notes, but basically there's no really good GUI design tools for Linux. Glade is abysmal. Mono's not great. Qt is probably the best one, but it's meh. So, I'm sorry to you too, Nathan. I feel your pain.
This is actually a really great write-up.
It is pretty good.
He sat down to look at Qt Creator, and because he was told it was an awesome thing in his words, and he decided to give it a try, and then it turns out it was missing some fundamentals that he expected. Like he said, when I started playing with the designer, one of the first things that I noticed was the lack of simple controls like buttons. This is pretty strange, and I thought I hadn't installed all the things needed. But when I searched for it, I got this tutorial from Qt itself, which explains how to create a button in QML from scratch. QML is one of the most awesome things I've ever seen to build the GUI logic. It's simple and flexible. The problem is, there isn't any kind of controls to create real-world desktop applications with it. That's pretty harsh, but pretty basic thing to be missing. And of course, like most of these types of things, it is on the future feature list.
Yeah, right. I don't believe that at all, but we can. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely 100% right. I'll put it this way: I don't think we're ever going to see Interface Builder or something as good as Visual Studio's GUI Builder on Linux for at least 2 years.
Now, let me ask you though: it doesn't seem like it's been a huge problem. I mean, I guess that's hard to say, but I mean, we are seeing really good.
This is kind of an argument between developers. Theoretically, you can do anything you want in relative layouts, right? Problem is, relative layouts are a pain in the ass to work with.
Yeah, I can understand.
And if you're coming from a background of working on the Mac, you can do absolute layouts and really get everything pixel perfect. So CodeJournal, it doesn't stretch, and this is a common complaint, because it's an absolute layout. Nothing's relative. And the reason for that is it's simply a lot easier.
Because you know where everything's going to be.
Right, and you don't have to worry about, well, how if they stretch it out this far, is it going to freak out the interface?
Right. Yeah, it's going to get all wonky on me.
So it's kind of the Android iOS thing. And having said that, Apple is moving towards pseudo-relative layouts. They're adding what you can do. They're adding it. But the type of relative layouts you see in, for instance, Mono or Glade, it's really not intuitive. You can't just drop a button on the screen, resize it, and put it somewhere without having all kinds of struts and springs. It's a pain. But yeah, so Nathan, if you find something, send it to me, because I would really like to see that.
Yeah, and you've tried Mono Develop, right?
Yeah, I was using it last night, but it's very similar to Glade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's the same. It's similar to Eclipse as well.
That doesn't surprise me too much.
Yeah.
Well, before we go on, why don't I tell you about a couple things I like? What do you say?
Okay.
All right. So first off, I want to remind everyone, 'tis this holiday season for shopping, and if you would keep Jupiter Broadcasting in mind when you are doing that shopping, just head over to jupiterbroadcasting.com and scroll all the way down to the very bottom of our site, where we have links down there for Amazon and Newegg and ThinkGeek and Best Buy and Mint.com, which is free, but they're still going to hook us up if you sign up. Actually, Mint.com, I probably should be plugging that more. It's a good way to keep track of your holiday expenses, and it's something we've used for a few years. Audible.com, fantastic for you commuters. Freaking love Audible. I'm reading a book right now that I'm totally mad about. Madly in love with it. I just love the book. We also have links down there for Chrome and Firefox extensions if you'd like to just load those into your browser and help us out when you're shopping. And then you don't even have to think about it. And that's a great way to support the network, because it doesn't really affect your budget while you're getting things for yourself. However, if you have a little extra spare cash to set aside per month, maybe like $7 or something like that, $10, please consider going to jupiterbroadcasting.com/donate and making a direct contribution and locking that sucker in so we have some predictable funding. We really appreciate that. And of course, with the holiday break coming up, you're probably going to have a little spare time on your hands. Maybe you want to learn. Maybe you want to get some work done. You want to be productive. Go grab yourself a copy of the fantastic Code Journal over at codejournalapp.com. Correct, Mr. Dominic? Anything I should tell the people about?
It is never going to look like a Moleskine journal.
It will never have skeuomorphic design.
I promised you that.
Donation competition. Yes, that's what I meant, not Brian. I meant a donation competition. Everybody compete. Code Journal app, of course, this is the premier application for the Macintosh platform for managing your GitHub account. Or if you have an enterprise Git server, right? That's probably even more handy.
Yes, So far, I've only had one case where it won't work with Enterprise, and that's because they had a crazy firewall up.
And you're like one of the handful of apps that actually takes advantage of Mac OS X's notification center, so that's nice.
Yeah. It's still sad how few of the apps I have actually use it. It's
I
getting
know
a little
it's
frustrating.
weird that it's more and more apps on the Mac platform are using less and less of the new features.
Yeah.
But yours is one of them. If you have 10.8, you can take advantage of some of those new Mountain Lion features. And for those of us who aren't running Macs, you probably know somebody who is using a Mac. You could pass this along to them, send them over to codejournalapp.com. But maybe stay tuned. You never know what might be in the future.
Yes, on January 14th.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody who grabs themselves a copy of Code Journal and supports Mr. Dominic directly, or uses our affiliate links and supports the Jupiter Broadcasting Network.
And I should also say, if you're shopping with the Jupiter Broadcasting affiliate link and don't know what to buy, you can always send me a gift. I do accept Xbox 360 games.
Like Halo 4, that'd be fine.
I have Halo 4 midnight launch. I love
look
Halo.
at you, player. Look at you.
Yes.
You like it?
I love it. I don't want to spoil anything, but
I should get a copy, is what you're saying?
You should get a copy. There's actually a story in a shooter. It's amazing.
I've heard that. I've actually heard people who are surprised by the story. Although I heard after you kind of get going, it kind of starts to fall away, but it's still good.
It dies in the middle and then it comes back.
There you go. All right. Well, should we talk about a little dev hoopla this week?
We should. So the first dev hoopla is the Wii U's terrible. Don't buy one.
I didn't see that in the show notes. Oh, okay.
I'm just vamping here. So I mentioned this last week. Tweetro, who's a independent developer doing. I'm sorry, their product's name is Tweetro. I forgot their company name. Lazy Coder or something like that.
Screwed is what it is.
Their name is dead.
Yeah.
They developed the most successful Twitter client on Windows 8 because Twitter does not have a Metro client. And they hit that 100K. They hit 100,000 users. That's awesome, right?
Wow, that's amazing, actually.
And Twitter hit them with the ban hammer. So basically, they're screwed.
Yeah, The Verge has a link of their daily downloads, just dropping way off, and
they're no longer on the store.
Right, Twitter's been totally unresponsive. Still, we talked about this like 2 weeks ago or a week ago. Yeah, like you said, but this is like not gotten any better, and you got to figure. When you have a new... So this is bad for Windows 8. This is bad for Tweetro, obviously, and this is bad for Twitter.
Well, did you get the full story?
No.
I think your data's old.
Oh, really? Tell me.
So I'm drafting a blog article I wanted to put up last night, but I fell asleep. Twitter replied to Tweetro, and Tweetro shared the letter.
Oh, really?
Thank you for developing... It's, the basic paragraph of thank you for contacting me, blah, blah, blah. Followed by, we're not going to extend you anything.
Bunch of assholes.
Because it is not quote, or it's not an exact quote, but basically it's not something they want.
All right, so it's like that, huh?
Yeah, it's like that. And that's it. That's discussions over.
You know what else they didn't want? They didn't want the retweet. They didn't want the hashtag. They didn't even want the freaking bird. Twitter didn't even invent the bird logo. An app developer came up with that.
Yeah. So it gets better. Dalton Caldwell, the lord of app.net as he is, wrote a pretty rough article describing how Twitter may be changing their business model, which I agree with more or less. Basically, Twitter is no longer a communication service or a protocol even. Did not know that was plugged in.
Twitter's calling. They want to talk to you about this.
It's a guy with a gun from Twitter. It is a media service for, quote, brands.
Boy, I don't want that at all. I got to tell you, you know what they see it as? They see it as people are watching TV with their iPads. And they think people are going to use Twitter to talk about the shows they're watching because you know what we all are? We're cute, adorable little stupid consumers who sit on our couch and watch our stupid TV and work on our stupid iPads and tweet about it, and that's what they want. They want a community of people who get all wrapped up in what the latest reality show is talking about. And you know what? That is not a service I have any interest in.
Yeah, and I know I mentioned this last week, but on the high level, they only want developers who are putting data into Twitter. They really don't care if you are pulling it out.
Gosh.
When I say, I shouldn't say they don't care. They don't want you to, right? So they want, I mean, they want basically the implementation of Twitter ID in a code journal. You can tweet something, but you can't actually read from Twitter. You can write, not read access. They want no more clients.
So they want spam.
They want spam. They want signals. Because whenever somebody tells you about signals, what are they really talking about, Chris? Go.
They're talking about things to monitor so that way they can market to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I like that nice euphemistic signals.
Well, that's like when people say brands,
or
mean
data points. Data points, right? Yeah. Yeah, that way brands can monitor your signals and then respond and engage.
And I don't want to hit this too hard, but for anyone who wants more information, read the articles, even in like Business Insider, Wall Street Journal, about the folks who in the last 6 months have left Twitter's board and who they've been replaced with.
Yeah.
And what their backgrounds are.
Yeah, it's all bad.
It's all media. It's all advertising.
Yep.
So how about that app.net?
I don't know, though. I don't know.
I use Twitter a lot, but I have to say it's like I mentioned something about Verizon and bam, Verizon was there.
Yeah.
It actually ended up helping me because they fixed something. But
well, I got to tell you, I mean, Twitter is like one of those things that can be a little bit of everything to everybody. I mean, I know I get a lot of crazy late breaking news there. I get, there is value in Twitter. I'm just sad to see it go
certainly
this way.
valuable. I mean, from a developer point of view, we can say this again and again, and people still won't listen. If your entire business is built on somebody else's platform, you're in danger.
It's funny though because it's almost impossible not to today.
Right. These days, it's hard not to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something to think about.
So on that sad note,
yeah,
Sinofsky got fired.
Whoa! This I did not see coming.
Oh, I'm sorry. He left for personal and private reasons. It was a mutual agreement. When I was in high school, there was this girl, and we broke up for personal and private reasons, and it was totally mutual, Chris. Totally.
Of course.
Damn it, Chris, it was mutual.
I understand. You were mutual after she decided.
Yes. She decided that we would mutually not see each other. Exactly.
I had one of those, too. It was rough.
That's how it went.
Yeah. And, Sinofsky, he's like a major Microsoft vet. He's been there forever. He worked in the Office divisions. I mean, this guy through and through is a Microsoftie. Some people thought he was in line to replace Ballmer. In fact, some people think that's why he left.
He's gone. Yeah.
Yes.
Nobody likes competition.
So
this scares the crap out of me.
Really? I was wondering. Tell me why.
Sinofsky is a jerk. I like jerks. Because jerks keep politics to a minimum, right? If you read the stories that people are now leaking about him, he would just tell people to go, bang off. I mean, he was beautiful. It's my kind of guy.
Yeah.
And he kept the vision. You may not agree with his vision, but he kept it pure. He was not willing to make compromises, and in all realism, that's why they got rid of him, right? That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Love it or hate it. First of all, the idea that he was dismissed because Windows 8 or the Surface aren't selling well. They haven't released numbers, but more importantly, it's been like 2 weeks.
I know.
That's not enough time for them to really gauge what happened.
Well, Microsoft actually did announce they sold 4 million copies, but that's to OEMs and whatnot.
But that's who they care about.
Yeah.
So it's definitely... and I get this, right? So if you buy a new Microsoft product, the Surface is a great example. If you get a Surface demoed to you, they're really selling the ecosystem in addition to the hardware. And a guy like Sinofsky didn't care about the ecosystem. There's a great story about him telling off the SkyDrive people. He wanted to consume Windows Phone into Windows.
Huh.
He wanted to do a lot of things that would basically make other departments subservient to him, which I think would have been amazing.
Yeah.
That's what you need. But obviously that's not what they're going for. Microsoft's a modern company. They believe in collaboration. So
yeah, Microsoft is sort of like this weird, one part of it's run by committee and the other part's run by fiefdoms that fight. It's this really weird. It's this really weird corporate culture they have. It's
and then you get disjointed experiences and
yeah,
weird things in the software, and that Sinofsky was my he was my great hope for Microsoft. Really.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's too bad.
Now he's been replaced by Laura Green.
Another long time. Yep. Green. She's got a hyphen in her name. Yeah, I can't forget. I'm blanking on it now. Taylor or something.
If you look into her, she's been with him for a long time. He promoted her up. So there is a hope that she'll be somewhat like him, but she does have a history, according to Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley of Windows Weekly, of being much more soft and collaborative than him, which is awful.
This is interesting, too, because it sort of parallels the outing of Scott Forstall. Scott Forstall was, the runner-up of iOS. He had come from Next with Jobs. He was the guy that said, no, we should take OS X and make it run on the iPhone. We shouldn't come up with... Because the bigger push inside Apple was to take the iPod OS and blow it up to the iPhone. And I think that would have been a horrible disaster.
Yeah.
So taking the core of OS X and making iOS, that was all Forstall. And now he's gone. And now Sinofsky, who, like him or hate him, brought Office forward, and then he brought, he helped oversee this Metro revolution. Obviously a huge direction change for Microsoft that they're going to keep going down for the foreseeable future. Both these guys, pretty key in the current product pipeline, and they're out. And I look at this and I think, sometimes I realize I don't hang my hopes on a company so much as sometimes the individuals in a company.
Yeah.
And then when that person leaves, even though they're a huge, massive company, they change.
Yeah, they're going to change. Now, there's been lots of rampant rumors that Sinofsky's gone, they're going to kill Surface, or they're going to kill Metro.
No.
Sinofsky is not gone because of what Windows 8 is. I'm relatively sure they're pretty happy with it. Because, Steve Ballmer keeps saying he's happy with it. And he's actually giving keynotes himself, which is creepy. It's creepy because CEOs who give keynotes always worry me. I didn't like that Steve Jobs did it. I really think the product lead should do it. This is definitely, in my opinion, from everything I've read about collaboration, and rather than selling you Windows and then a Windows Phone, then SkyDrive, they want it to be the Microsoft experience, just like with Apple and like what Google does, right? When you buy a Mac, you're not just getting OS X and some hardware, you're getting the ecosystem. Just like when you buy an Android device, it's the same deal. And a guy who doesn't want to collaborate is obviously going to be, not welcome. The other interesting point, you brought a parallel to Apple.
Mm.
Have you noticed that Apple's restructured and kind of made OS X no longer its own division?
Yeah, OS X's screwed.
OS X is on its way out.
Yep.
That's why I will be calling System 76.
They will now be overseen by, iOS. So they instead of breaking it out by software and stuff, they broke it out by, there's software services, here's operating systems, and here's hardware, right? That's how Apple kind of did it. And go ahead.
The writing is on the wall, though. It's not that S is going to go away. That terminal S. It's going to be operating system.
Well, and you've heard those rumors of ARM-based Macs. How much you want to bet those are running iOS?
Yeah, we're going to see a 10.9 for sure.
Mm-hmm. It's already in development.
I don't think we're going to see an 11. But I think 11 will be basically iOS.
Apple has, Steve Jobs introduced OS X, and they said, this is our he said, word for word, this is our operating system for the next 10 years. Well, we're now at 11 years, so it would make sense they're going to start transitioning away.
Yeah, and if you look at Mountain Lion, you can feel the iOS-ness in it.
Mm-hmm.
Launchpad. Sneaky bastards.
Interestingly enough, not at the same scope at all, but Canonical just had their Compiz developer leave. So, and Unity runs as a Compiz plugin. So Unity is 100% dependent on Compiz. And so now, the engine that runs the Compiz environment, the creator of that, is no longer working for the company.
Where did he go?
He left. He's done. He's going to focus on school for a bit. He says he's going to still work on the project. But this is kind of a gray area because I think he still technically is the owner of that project, right?
I can just give him a bag of money or
fork it. but they don't have the people. I mean, this is the problem. Is they just have one guy working on this. I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's weird when these companies have these really key figures leave, and then we just kind of watch them, and you wonder, will they ever quite be the same again?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be watching the Microsoft news with great interest now.
Yeah, and it's not helping. Go ahead.
It could go well, right? I mean, there's certainly an argument to be made that tying in all these services might be a good idea. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I feel like you need when you're doing something as drastic as a Metro on Windows 8, you need someone strong and, basically a tool to push that forward.
And I'm still not convinced the Microsoft approach works. So what are the big complaints right now about the Surface is you buy the 32 gig version of the Surface and it only comes with 15 gigabytes of usable space. Right? They have now today. There's reports that on Slashdot and a few other sites that Windows Phone 8 users are experiencing random reboots and lockups. And see, the issue is it does kind of show you how what they've done is sort of a reset, and they're kind of at 1.0 again. Microsoft is with their mobile platform and all of this.
Certainly with Windows Phone.
Yeah. And I kind of mean the same on the Surface too with RT. Not so much on the desktop. But the challenge they have there is they're, again, sort of pressing that reset button, and they're already way, way, way behind, and I'm not convinced it's the right approach. I kind of almost think the Apple and Linux approach are a little better because they're starting small and they're building up. iOS is small, and they might build it up to the desktop. ARM is small and slow, low power, and it's getting more powerful, and they're building up. Linux is the kernel, and the Canonical and Ubuntu build on top of it and build it up. Whereas with Microsoft and Windows, they're starting with a very, very, very big, very old project, and they're trying to shrink it down, trying to make it. Huh?
Can I troll you?
Yeah, totally.
Ever since I got 2 weeks ago the 4.2 update on my Nexus, it has crashed at least 4 times a day.
Whoa, really? You
haven't restarted itself. It's been a nightmare.
I actually am not. I really, really, really like my Nexus 7, by the way.
Yes.
But you're right. 4.2. I don't like the way the notification bars work because I'm constantly pulling down the wrong one.
I'm having lag again. Like I never.
Yes.
So I have the Galaxy Nexus, and it came with 4.1, which is ice cream sandwich.
Yeah, I'm getting stuttering. I was not getting stuttering before, and I was like, "Holy crap! The Android experience is totally smooth. They did it. Project Butter works." I was like, because that's one of the I literally one of the major reasons I bought the Nexus was just to see if Project Butter was a reality, if it really worked, and I was like, "Holy crap! Google did it." Finally. And then with that update, I'm seeing like when Chrome loads, I'm seeing stutter.
Yeah.
I haven't had any lockups yet, but that's because I wiped it and put Ubuntu on there, and I just put.
Well, mine's really interesting. If I'm listening to a podcast such as Last, and if I've been listening to multiple podcasts, so say for 2 hours, it restarts the phone.
Jeez. I've been having problems with a few games that my son plays where he closes the game, but the sound is still playing. So then you launch another app, and then both apps' sound is playing. Do not like that.
I do not like it. And I just want to be clear because someone's asking. No, it's not just that it cuts out the sound. It literally goes to the reboot screen with the little Nexus icon and the whole Google Verizon thing.
Yeah.
So the point is phones crash. And I wouldn't say that I don't have a Windows phone currently. I actually sold my Windows Phone 7.
Oh, really?
Yeah. What I would say is that I think it's the hardware, the multiple hardware versus integration model that might have the problem.
Oh, wow.
So
that's a bummer.
So every Android phone I've had has crashed multiple times all the time. Then the Nexus was the best one until this last update.
Yeah, I really agree. I really thought it was great. And it's not horrible now, but I haven't had any lockups, but I have had issues.
Yeah. Now my iPhone, because I left it out in the heat, doesn't play audio.
Oh my God.
So kind of stuck, but I may be getting an iPhone 5 for a project soon.
Back to the Sinofsky stuff. Do you think we're seeing reports, every major news site's covering Windows 8 sales. The term I'm seeing the most are either quote unquote disappointing or quote unquote missing the target.
So I don't know what to make of this because if it was Surface sales are disappointing and we're missing the target, you can interpret that one way. But because I've also read that PC sales are in the toilet too.
Hmm.
So is it that people are opting to buy Windows 7 PCs or Macs or Ubuntu PCs, or are they just not buying new PCs?
I think that is the case. So I have just a sort of a selection that I go, talking to clients, working, and they ask me because I'm a computer guy. They ask me, and they, almost universally, the most common thing is people have XP computers at home that they bought a long time ago, and they just still do what they need because they just have real basic needs at home, and they have no interest in Windows. So Vista scared the crap out of most of the people I talked to. They didn't want Vista, and then they didn't want 7 because they heard it was a lot like Vista, which I don't know where they heard that. And now they know they definitely don't want 8. So much to the point where it becomes painfully obvious it's time to replace their computers.
They refuse.
They don't want them replaced. And is just, that floors me. I'm like, do you understand I'm offering you a brand new computer that's like 10 times faster than what you're using right now? And they don't want it. They don't want it.
Yeah, and as somebody's been pointing out in the chat, and I've been reading for a while now, the low-end PC market is being cannibalized by tablets. So the $600, $500 crap.
Which is where they sold a lot of volume.
Which is where they had their volume. Yeah, I don't know what to make of this. I mean, this is one of those things where you can interpret the statement any way you like. You could say, oh, Windows 8 sucks. Or you could say, well, the market's changed.
Personally, I just want to go on record, on air, and say I don't think Windows 8 sucks.
I actually like Windows 8. So
I don't know if I like it. I agree. There's this post that I have linked in the show notes about there are some serious usability questions about having quote unquote 2 desktops. But right. For a guy like me, I get that, and I can use that. So what I use, and I don't use it often anymore, but for about a month, I was working at a client, and I committed myself to using Windows 8 every single day I was there, and the whole day. And what I found is that I would do some tasks in Metro, like email or my work notes, or honestly, like, I kind of found it was a way to sneak reading the news because the Metro UI is so different and the apps look so different. People couldn't tell if I was reading the news or looking at server reports. I mean, that's just how different it looks. So I was able to be a little sneaky and actually, blow off some steam a little bit. And then what I would do is just, Windows key D, boom, I'm back to the desktop. I've got 5 putty windows open. I've got my Chrome browser open, and it's just like my Linux desktop. And then I, smack the Windows key and Metro comes back up. And I'll tell you something else. What I realized is it's just a full screen start menu that's animated, and they have the fastest damn search launch I have ever seen on any mother freaking platform. And not only that, but that freaking search will search their online store. It'll search whatever else plugs into the Windows search, and it will search that crap faster than Spotlight, than Dash on Unity, than Windows 7 start menu search does. I mean, I have never seen results that fast. So there's some stuff I like.
It doesn't recommend stuff from Amazon.
Yeah, that is nice. Although they do have full banner ads in some of their apps that drives me a little nuts.
That's a little weird, but
yeah. And it actually, like Volvix is saying, it actually uses less memory than Win 7. And I don't know because it's always hard to tell when you have a fresh install, but I swear to God, it feels faster, and it definitely boots faster.
It definitely boots faster, and I mean, my experience has been the same as yours. It seems faster, but I can't tell. It certainly boots faster.
And that whole setting sync stuff, when you actually, I don't know if I like signing with my live ID, but when you do, I laughed at it first because it pulled down all the wrong information. It said my name was Castro and all this stuff, and it hooked up the wrong email. I have no idea what happened there. It was obviously something wrong on their end.
Uncle Fidel.
Right. But after I cleared all that up, and then I wiped the machine, and I loaded on another machine, and I was like, well, fine, I'll just log in with my account here. And it pulled down all my settings, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. So there's some advantages there. I like that a lot. But the problem is that's just not, that's just not what the consumer wants.
Well, I don't know if it's what they want. It's certainly something they're going to have to learn.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah.
So our last story of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft has turned the tables on WebKit. Those of you who've had to deal with IA6 will be surprised.
At the irony.
Yeah. So Microsoft is complaining that WebKit is breaking web standards. And do you know what? They are 100% correct.
So it's sort of bizarre and funny, but Microsoft is saying, guys, targeting your websites for WebKit's holding the web back.
So here's the scene. Basically, when you're doing mobile web development or you're doing responsive design or anything where you have to account for iPhones and to a lesser extent Android, because I hate to tell you, but kind of still second class, even though it has market share. You end up using a lot of WebKit prefix CSS tags or WebKit only functions. So what that means is now WebKit's been pretty good. They eventually come into the normal, quote, normal standard. But developers don't go back and actually remove the WebKit specific tag. So the actual page still doesn't function on anything else, including IE10. Ironically, I had an experience where IE10 followed a standard a lot better than Chrome. It was the new CSS grid. Chrome can't do it. IE10 does.
Yeah, I have no sympathy. Just use WebKit, Microsoft. I don't know. I don't know why I feel this way, but screw them. You know what? Maybe if everybody's used front page, things would be better off. This is sort of like
Wow.
they're the biggest offender of this in the history of ever. No one will ever have been a bigger offender of this than Microsoft. Ever. Never. Never again. Never again. No one. And it's Microsoft here.
I don't think so. So if you look at the touch interaction stuff in WebKit, that is basically all Apple all the time. I mean, it just so happens that Chrome also uses WebKit, and for certainly the JB crowd, it's not an issue. But I've had experiences where I'm used to coding to WebKit too, right? Because I just use WebKit. Firefox is a bit behind. IE, sometimes better, sometimes worse. Basically, of all the mobile web apps I've written in the last year, I would say they all function best on WebKit.
But don't you think this is because Microsoft didn't get their act together fast enough?
But it's not
so
just
the world
Microsoft.
moved on. The world moved on to WebKit because they didn't get it.
Sure, but has Mozilla not gotten their act together too?
Yeah, exactly. Well, on mobile,
right,
absolutely,
then.
Yeah.
All right, well,
they're definitely trying, but they're years behind. I mean, the fact of the matter is WebKit has been a first-class web browser on mobile for 5 years now, and Firefox has got it for a few months, for a year maybe, and IE has just gotten there in the last 6 to 7, one release ago. I don't think it's unreasonable at all. I think what this is somebody, a big company, sat on their laurels and they let themselves get left behind, and now they're complaining about it.
Right. I mean, look, I'll be honest. If WebKit became the standard tomorrow, my life would, other than that one grid thing, my life would be a lot easier.
Right.
Having said that, IE10 is not hard to support. In fact, it's sometimes less work than Firefox.
Well, it makes sense because now they want to be competitive.
Now they're very interested in being compatible.
Yeah.
Well, and this is kind of on the rails, right? Because there are charts to say who supports what and who twists the standard, and they all do it. It's just, actually, see, I don't know though. Why is this such a problem? Why can't it just be like one API?
Why can't Microsoft just support all the stuff that the WebKit specific sites are trying to use?
Why can't Firefox? Why can't Opera?
Maybe they will.
They won't. Firefox, Mozilla does have their own stuff. That's the problem. They all want to be kings of their own little kingdom.
Mm-hmm. But we almost need a standard, a publishing standard.
We need the DOM. Oh no.
But wouldn't WebKit? It's open source. It's used by major competing vendors that both actively contribute to it. It seems like it is
not invented here, baby. The same reason Mozilla won't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no... Yeah, sure, they could all just one day wake up and be like, you know what? We like WebKit. But why is there the V8 engine and the Gecko engine and the Chakra best named engine?
Right, yeah. I forget that Chrome does rip out the JavaScript engine with WebKit.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Chrome has its own JavaScript engine. And, there are reasons to say that V8 may be the, quote, best JavaScript engine. Certainly one of the fastest.
Yeah.
I mean, this is way into the weeds. And
although I just saw an IE10 benchmark. I think that in some tests was outperforming Chrome by a noticeable margin.
So what's really weird is the IE10 is extremely good at HTML5 canvas games.
What it was.
They are, honestly, right now it is the best browser for HTML5 canvas games.
Huh.
Safari sucks. Firefox is abysmal, and Chrome is okay. That's because of what they're doing in Windows 8. Because they want those casual games to be written in HTML5 JavaScript, and they want them to run as though they were native. So they've done a lot in the Chakra engine to really speed that up. And they blog about it on MSDN. This is not theory.
Right.
On their Channel 9 site and MSDN, Channel 9, if you don't know, is their little video thing for developers, which is actually very good. They are very open about they are making a push to be the best browser for browser games.
I still, on a daily basis when I'm working, I hear people say, well, I like to use IE because some of my sites work better in it. I still hear that.
I find that challenging, but okay.
I know. I shudder a little bit, but yeah.
But I mean, it's easy to criticize, but they've made improvements. No, that's not to say they've done everything right. Certainly WinJS is disturbing. I still don't think that's a great idea.
I don't think browser games are dying. The chat room they're saying, why are they focusing on HTML5 browser games? It's almost like this weird acknowledgement from Microsoft that the desktop platform is going to become less relevant, and so they need to.
Right. So I just want to comment real quick, and it's to your point as well. Not Brian mentioning Farmville. They are not targeting Farmville in those kind of casual games. They're targeting. So these JavaScript engines are powerful enough that a lot of games that may have been written in, say, Java or Objective-C can now be serviceably written in JavaScript on these platforms.
Wow.
That's what they're targeting. The next Bejeweled killer, and there will be one, they're hoping is written in HTML5 and is put on Windows 8 or Windows Phone 8. Thank you, JB Viewer 8, letting me know I have a meeting in 15 minutes.
Our chat room is so helpful.
Yes. Okay.
All right. So I don't think we're going to get to the C++ topic then.
We are never going to get to the C++ topic.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm sorry. I guess it'll be next week.
Yeah, right.
Well, we do have a couple of points of business to get to.
I have a book of the week,
yeah.
the C++ primer.
Oh, how appropriate. And how's your main to our... Wait. Well, people could read this now because you could get the Kindle edition immediately, and then you'd be all ready to yell at Michael after our next show.
Listen, when we finally do the C++ talk, I expect some really good conversation in the chat room.
Okay, so here's the thing. Because we're going to push this out one more week, we have a chance to get some emails on the topic, people. So let us hear your thoughts on this. coderradio@jupiterbroadcasting.com. Any C++ thoughts, anything like that, send them in to us and let us know. Give us your feedback. And we're going to have to do it next week, or else I think we're going to have a mutiny on our hands.
Yeah, we may just have to do the top 3 Dev Hoopla instead of... we only did 4 or 5.
Yeah. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? There's only so much show. You can only do so much show in a week.
My tool of the week is Qt Creator for C++ development.
Wop, wop, wop. That's a really good tool.
#fail.
#fail. Now, this tool, we did dog on it a little bit when we were mentioning how it doesn't have some of the basics. We should say, though, this is a very compelling project, and it has definitely got a very solid future ahead of it.
2014.
I don't think you're joking when you say that.
Yeah. 2014, Qt will be a name even outside of Linux.
Yeah, because they're getting their act together in a big way, and they're offering some really, really, really nice cross-platform advantages. Yeah,
I'm telling you, and Zamirian's going to be in trouble.
Mono guys?
Yeah, because if you read their blog, the Qt blog, they're very aggressively planning to move into mobile.
It's in their DNA. There's actually, from their history with Nokia and all that stuff.
Ooh. That's just rough.
Too soon?
All right, I think that's a wrap.
All right, Mr. Dominic. Well, there you go, folks. We got a little shorter one this week for you because of the holidays, and that means a condensed work schedules for both of us this week. We're both running off to client meetings after this week's show, but where can people get a hold of you throughout the week?
They can tweet me at Dumanuko on Twitter if Twitter doesn't throw me out. Also the same on app.net, and find me on Google+.
And you can find me in all those places. We have links in the show notes. Coda Radio is live Mondays at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern at jblive.tv. And you can email us, codaradio@jupiterbroadcasting.com. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode of Coda Radio, and we'll see you right back here next week.